So today, we're going to take a look at a scenario where Mars finally gets colonized. I've been wanting to do this video for quite a while now, and I kind of hope to turn this into a series because this would be kind of fun. So let me know if you want to see it as a series, but I'm not going to yap right now. Let's just get straight to the video. So, I have this Mars map here. Of course, this is instead of my normal world map that I normally use. I got this map of Mars, which I think is pretty cool. On this channel, I do some space stuff, I do some mapping stuff, and other science stuff, just anything I'm interested in, and just exploring the world and stuff. So I thought I'm gonna kind of bring together some of the niches and just do this new series. So basically, what we're gonna be doing is mapping out potential colonies and even maybe future countries on Mars. So yeah, let's get started. So it's probably about the year 2030, and countries are finally sending the first manned missions to Mars. But obviously, these journeys are extremely expensive, and it's very difficult to pack enough supplies to go to Mars and then back to Earth. So most of the people who are going here are staying here forever. And so obviously, and most likely, the first country to get here is the United States through, I don't know, NASA or SpaceX or something, but it'll probably be the United States. And NASA is a government organization. Elon Musk is very close to the government. So if they were to set up a colony, it would probably be administered or at least highly influenced by the US government, and it would basically just be a colony. And so the United States makes their first colony, or the first settlement I should say, over here by the giant canyon here. And they're gonna make it right there. This is their first settlement, and we can color the area around it blue, because that's gonna be the color of the United States. And they're going to claim the area around their settlement for their country. Keep in mind, now a lot of countries back on Earth are going to be very mad about this, because obviously you can't just go and claim a country, right? So we can color the US blue, because now they have an official colony on Mars. So I'm not really going to be doing any wars or anything on the world map, just coloring which countries have colonies, and then just coloring them the color of their colonies. Like the US is blue here, their colonies are going to be blue on Mars. But the next country, now go leave a comment and see which one you think it's going to be, but it's actually going to be China, and they're going to be creating their settlement not too far away from the US, kind of still like on the same side of the planet, but I mean, still kind of far away. It's going to be over here in this crater. They're going to make their city right here, and they're going to claim the entirety of this crater, kind of just up until these mountains and these plains here. So far we have two countries with two colonies on Mars. But now, which one will be next? But now, which countries would actually be capable of setting up a colony on Mars? So now, going back to our world map here, obviously we have our two powers that are on Mars, but which countries have actually made it to Mars and would be capable of setting up a colony? Well, apparently India's made it to Mars, and well, they're very strong country, they could definitely set up a colony there. The European Union apparently has also made it to Mars. They could definitely set up a colony. I mean, it's Europe after all, if we need to say anything else. Russia has also made it to Mars, more so the Soviet Union, but they're kind of busy right now. But also apparently the UAE has made it to Mars. For some reason, I had never heard of that mission before. But apparently the UAE has made it to Mars, and they're the first Gulf country to do so. So, I mean, cool, good for them. But to be honest, they're probably not setting up a colony anytime soon. And so for now, we're probably going to see a bit of a Cold War on Mars between the USA and China. So this is going to be China's main base on Mars. This is where they're going to be feeding in most of their supplies, all that kind of stuff. So now China is actually going to set up a second colony, you could say, and it's going to be right over here. And of course, they claim the area around it, but now they're going to create a route between their two countries, or colonies. I don't know why I said countries. But it's going to link their one base to the other. They're going to go around this area, and they'll cut across through here, and straight over to the other base. This is the first route created on Mars. And now the US is kind of falling behind, because now China has a pretty large area under their influence on Mars where they're drilling for water, resources, doing research, extracting minerals and stuff. And so what does the US do? They go and they set up another base at the base, that's a lot of bases, but at the foot of the largest mountain in the solar system, Olympus Mons. And of course, they claim the area around it, even going up the side of the mountain. And we could probably see the first person ever to climb Olympus Mons. So, I mean, that'd be kind of cool. But really, any person who does anything here is the first person to do anything on Mars, so not really saying much. But now the US will start on their routes between their two settlements, just kind of mapping out where the best routes would be to take. They do have to go around this canyon, of course, but they'll complete that soon. And so now we actually do have another country finally getting here, but I can guarantee you it's probably not one that you think. They're going to set up their first base right over here, and take a guess at who you think it is. Their claimed area will go as purple. I don't know why, that's kind of usually the color I use for this country. And they'll take something that looks like that. So who do you think this is? I'll give you a hint. They're in Asia. It's also Japan. Yeah, Japan now has a colony on Mars. So now there are 3 countries, and 3 very powerful countries, I might add, that are on Mars. And it's 2 Western countries. Japan is a close ally of America. And so China is feeling quite threatened by this, but China doesn't really have any allies in the same sense that America does, or even ones that could make a colony on Mars. The only one that's kind of like that is Russia, but again, they're kind of busy. And so China is just going to have to ramp up their colonizing. So what do? They start claiming the area around their trade route. I guess it's not really a trade route, but it's just the route they have between their colonies. And they start to expand upon this colony. Now, just because they're using this land as their route between their 2 colonies doesn't mean they're actually using that land exactly, like to claim it or whatever. But everything in their claimed area is stuff they're actually using and like manufacturing stuff there and putting up homes and other bases here. And with that, China actually becomes the first country to have 3 bases or settlements on Mars, as they now put another one right in the middle of the route. Basically solidifying their entire dominance over this region. They then send people into this area to kind of claim this flatter depression, the lava plains and that. So obviously China has the largest colony. I'm going to add in one more thing. It's going to be these white squares. And these are going to be settlements that are just research bases. Obviously they have research facilities in every single other one of their bases. These ones are solely just for research. Nobody actually lives there full time. Japan also has one out here. And the US, despite having 2 different regions, they only have one at least near the peak of Olympus Mons. So it's the year 2032, and countries have finally begun to colonize Mars. In the center of the map, we have a massive Chinese colony. In the west, we have 2 American colonies. And over in the east, we have a small Japanese colony. And today, we'll be taking a look at what will happen in the coming years after the first colonization of Mars. Many more countries will begin to colonize, and it could lead to a bunch of future conflicts. So let's take a look. So right off the start, we actually have China expanding their colony eastward, going out towards the Japanese colony over here. But we also have the Olympus American colony expanding around the base of the mountain. And the Valles Marineris colony will also begin to expand, encompassing the majority of the canyon. So now the US holds 2 of the largest canyons in the solar system. Over in the Japanese colony, they actually don't do a whole lot. The only thing they do is set up another research base over here. And now to get started with new colonizing, we actually have another country joining, or should I say a group of countries. And that is of course because the EU will begin to colonize down here on the edge of this, I don't know if this is a crater or just a plateau, but this large area right here. And they set up a colony right here, nothing too large yet. Their main base will be right here, and they'll set up a couple of research stations around the perimeters of their colony. No other settlements yet. So now there are 4 colonizing groups on the planet: the US, China, Japan, and the EU. Now if we go back to the world map, you'll see that I have colored in all the countries that have colonies. So now we're going to fill in the EU. These colonies aren't going to be administered by the EU as a whole necessarily. They will be, but they will be mainly controlled by representatives from a couple of countries. Those include Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, but also Belgium, Greece, Poland, and Sweden. Now you'll notice there are some pretty prominent countries that aren't, taking place in this, such as Spain or Denmark. But that's because some of these countries don't actually support this, and they don't want to be responsible or in control of the colonies. But now, of course, there's one very notable country that is not taking part in this, and that is, of course, France. Now, why might France not be taking part in the EU colonizing? Well, you might already know because I just colored them in. But France will be colonizing on their own. They will go up north here and claim a rather large area of the Martian desert. Right away, they set up their main base right here and 3 separate research bases. So now if we zoom out, we can see that there are lots of different, colonies, but also different countries that are on Mars. And fast forwarding a couple of years, we actually begin to see a couple more countries begin to colonize. We will head up here and we will color in this area, give them their capital base, and then of course their research bases, which they will only have 2 of for now. Take a guess on which country this one might be, because if you said the UK, you would be correct. So now taking a look at this map, if you know a lot about geopolitics or just watch any of my other mapping videos, you'll probably notice something. And if we also look at this map, it also becomes pretty obvious. It's really only Western countries, or at least Western allies, and then China that have colonized. And if we kind of look at how they're placed, China is nearly completely surrounded by, countries they consider their enemies, right? And so China is not happy about this. China is calling on some of their allied countries to begin colonizing Mars. But China doesn't really have any good allies, or at least strong allies that could colonize Mars. They have Pakistan, North Korea, and Russia, which we'll actually get to them in a second. They have some African allies down here that aren't really allies, but none of their allies would be capable of colonizing. Pakistan and North Korea maybe, but I highly doubt they would. If India does, then Pakistan probably would, so we could see those 2 start colonizing soon. And I was looking at the comments on the last episode of the series, and a lot of you guys said you wanted to see more stuff on the world map. Because this series is meant to be more focused on Mars than the real world, or than the Earth, I should say. I'm not going to focus too much on it, but you guys did ask to see different things, such as any resolution to the Ukraine war, the results from World War III, but World War III is not going to happen yet. Am I foreshadowing to anything future in this series? I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. But in the last video, I was just saying that Russia isn't going to be colonizing because they're kind of busy in Ukraine, and they're not doing too well either. Some of you guys said it would be cool to see a resolution from the Ukraine war, as I said, but also some other planned future events, such as the formation of the East African Union, which I actually like that idea. Because if the East African Union became a thing, they would be a pretty strong country. And especially if they could crack down on any civil war issues and stability issues, they could start colonizing Mars. And so I actually like that idea. One other thing I'll point out, it's 2030 something right now, so Bougainville, or whatever this island is called, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but they get independence in 2027, I think, so they're a country now. They're not colonizing Mars, unless maybe secretly they're the most powerful country in the world, this singular island here. Who knows? We'll have to see that in a future video, because right now they're not colonizing. But I'm actually going to mark down a couple more notable countries. So the East African Federation is not going to form yet. Keep in mind, I said yet. But a couple other countries could colonize, such as Brazil, Canada, any other European countries, Russia, India, Pakistan I've already said, some more Middle Eastern countries, like Turkey, Iran, Saudi Arabia, even Israel, Egypt. You never know who we're going to find. And a lot of you guys said you wanted to see a resolution for the Ukraine war, so I will draw that in right now. I wasn't going to make this too much of an alternate future series for Earth, but I kind of do like that idea, so we'll just kind of roll with it for now. But most of the stuff that happens on Earth is going to be from you guys, so make sure to leave a comment down below so that way you guys can change this world map, because it will be largely up to you. But as of right now, most of the peace treaties or proposed peace treaties I've seen for Ukraine look something like giving Russia all the land here and then leaving Ukraine alone. And so I think I'm just going to give them this land. It's been stalemated for a while, so hopefully there's going to be a solution soon if they stop bombing each other. So we'll have that. Ukraine will be left alone. It will still be a democracy and all that cool stuff. But yeah, let me know if any other things you want to see on the map, because I'd actually be interested in doing stuff like maybe Somaliland gets independence, Western Sahara, Kosovo gets recognized, Taiwan, different things like that. I don't know, Kurdistan, I don't know. Random stuff. You guys get to decide that. I probably won't be able to do everything you guys say for like a couple videos. Just let things catch up. But yeah. Also, a quick side note about the series. I'm probably going to be doing this every Saturday. So just make sure you tune in next week. But yeah, so back to Mars. We're going to be having a country form another colony. And this time, of course, it will be China, as they're not stopping. They claim a large area down here, kind of on the edge of this basin. They set up 2 settlements where people will live, work, whatever. But then also 2 other research bases, make that actually 3. So China, actually, let's give them another one over here, and another one up here. So China is way ahead of everyone else as of right now, just looking at this. They have far more research bases, far more just settlements in general, and a lot more area. I don't know if anybody's sending military here. Probably not, since nobody really borders each other. But you never know. We could see a war on Mars soon. Who knows? Going over here to America, they are not happy that China is doing all this. And so they set up a couple more research bases in their main colony here. They set up another one over here. And they set up one on the very top of Olympus Mons, which isn't even technically in their control. They also set up another one down here in this canyon. And they set up another one near these 3 volcanoes here. I don't know if you can even see that on the map, because they are kind of hard to see. But there's 3 volcanoes there. Now you might be wondering, but these aren't even controlled by the US. But there are trade routes, or just other routes between their colonies. I don't really know what to call these. I've just been saying trade routes, but there's got to be something better. So the US actually finishes their route between their colonies here, and they're actually joining up with France to create a route between their colonies. The same thing goes for the EU and Japan, who are also beginning to work on some routes, and also Japan and Great Britain. They're going to link up some of their research bases, and Great Britain and France are also working on a common route between their 2 colonies, respectively. The Americans and the French finish up their route, as the EU and Japan get very close to finishing. China, as I said earlier, they feel very threatened by this. This is going to completely encircle them by their enemies. And this is also another reason why they form a colony down there. They make a route to link their 2 settlements there. And very quickly they build a route between their 2 colonies. Next, we actually see China begin to move out and claim the land around their colonies, or around their route. I don't know why I said that. And tensions are very high between Western nations and China, as they kind of start a Cold War on Mars, but also on Earth. This is more of an arms race and a space race than anything, not so much a ideological sides with one way or another. like how the original Cold War was on Earth. It's not quite like that with the communists and the capitalists or the democracies or whatever. It's more of who can become more powerful, which was definitely in the other Cold War, but that's the main focus of this one. And so seeing this, the Americans desperately need to ramp up their colonizing side, their colony size, and so they actually do begin to do that, expanding along their trade route, taking over the majority of the canyon and their other research base down there, taking over the entirety of Olympus Mons, which for some reason China doesn't like that. I don't know if they were wanting to claim some of Olympus Mons, but they're not very happy about that. And the US eventually takes over and claims the entire region of their trade route. And just to solidify this, they actually make another settlement right in the middle of the route. So now, what would the population of Mars even look like right now? Like, I honestly have no idea. Like, I would assume probably a couple 100,000. Like, maybe like 2,000 or 3,000 in the UK. Maybe 5,000 to 7,000 in Japan. 3,000 to 5,000 in the EU. Probably 10,000 to 15,000 in China because they've been here for a while, so they're bringing more people in. And probably the same for the US, probably about 10,000 to 15,000, and then probably like 5,000 to 7,000 for the French because they've been here for a little bit longer too, and they're a little bit larger. And they actually just set up their second settlement over here. Same with the British, they set up a settlement right on the edge of their territory. Now, Japan's been here for a while, but they haven't expanded at all. And I don't really know why. But they won't be expanding right now, other than their trade route with the EU, and finally with the British. The French and the British will continue to work on their route, but that probably will not be completed today. And now, with the final event of this video, we have, well, one more thing taking place. A US satellite detects a large explosion in the desert around this area. They don't know what it is, but it's somewhere around here, and they're detecting large amounts of radiation in the area. Take that as you will. So it's about the year 2035, and the colonization of Mars is finally about to speed up. In the last episode, we saw the expansion of the Chinese colonies and the American colonies, and many other European countries such as France, the UK, and the EU begin to colonize Mars. And today the colonization will continue, as many more countries will colonize Mars. Okay, so at the end of the last video, hopefully you all watched to the end, right? You should have. But if you didn't, well, I mean, shame on you, but there was a massive explosion in this area here. There's also lots of radiation in that area now, and the US and, well, every single other country on Mars here, as well as some other Western countries, they all accused China of detonating a nuke on Mars, which according to the Outer Space Treaty is not allowed, because you can't put your military in space. I mean, technically you also can't claim land in space or on other planets, but we're gonna obviously be ignoring that here, because otherwise you can't colonize. But most of the countries here have agreed that you shouldn't be detonating nukes here. Elon Musk has said that he wants to nuke Mars to warm it up, but that's obviously a bad idea if you already have humans living here. Mars is a much smaller planet than Earth, about a quarter of the size of Earth or a third of the size of Earth, kind of in between that. And so the impact a nuke would have on a region of Mars is going to be a lot larger than it would on Earth, just because the regions are smaller and the nukes are the same size. So right now there's a large radiation zone on Mars about this large, and basically the whole world is pointing their fingers at China and saying, hey, why'd you do that? That wasn't very smart. But China will deny that it was them, but in retaliation, the EU is going to expand their colony inwards towards this region to kind of start to block off China. And they're actually going to make another settlement closer into this region. I mean, I don't know why you're going to walk into a radiation zone and put a whole bunch of people there, but that's what they do. They also add a couple more research bases to the area. And also in retaliation to that, China's going to go and make more research bases throughout their trade route. Again, I really don't know what to call these, so just tell me in the comments. They also make some research bases out here. They also make a settlement here, and a settlement here. So right now, China is the most populous colony on Mars. I mean, no surprise, they're the most populous country on Earth. But a lot of countries aren't fans of that, because now China has expanded along this entire route and gone to encompass this settlement here, and also these research bases. That also includes basically that entire radiation zone from that nuke that China probably detonated. But now China is quite clearly the largest colony on Mars, and in retaliation to that, the US will continue to expand their colony, getting a lot closer to China, but also thickening out up north and moving up towards France. France will also do this, and they actually now border the United States on Mars. And this looks like it could be France's longest border. Because if you didn't know, the longest border of France is actually with Brazil through French Guiana. But now I think it might actually be with the US through their Martian colony. Actually, it's definitely on Mars, because this is actually kind of huge. But France will actually expand this way along this trade route, which they will hopefully connect up with the United Kingdom soon. And speaking of the United Kingdom, they also begin to move along their trade route, claiming a lot more land past where they've even built the route, but also moving down towards Japan. Speaking of Japan, they were one of the first countries to colonize Mars, surprisingly. But in the last episode, they didn't do anything. They stayed very small, and they mainly just focused on research. Well, that is no more, as they will now begin to colonize a lot more. And we now actually see our second border on Mars, as they now meet up with the United Kingdom. And finally, we actually see the EU and Japan also link up, basically forming a large ring all the way around China. And China is not happy about that. They're going to try and get some more of their allies to begin colonizing Mars. But as I've said before, there really isn't a lot of countries that China allied to that could colonize. I mean, it's Pakistan, Russia, North Korea. But that's really it, and I don't even see them doing that. But going over here to East Asia, we have a new event taking place, and it's Japan opening up their colony to not just Japan. It is now a joint colony with South Korea. So kind of how the EU has colonies, but it's mainly just run by these couple countries in green, mostly just Germany. Japan's colony is under Japan, but it's also administered by South Korea. This actually angers North Korea, who, believe it or not, actually make it to Mars and set up a very small colony over here. They set up their main base right over here by China. Then they link it up with the Chinese trade route. So I guess it is kind of now a trade route going between more than one country. See, I guess that would be the same with all these other ones too, but yeah. But North Korea will also make a settlement over here, and over here. So despite being this small, they actually have more settlements than Japan even. And for research bases, they have one here and one here. Not a lot. Speaking of research bases, the US will actually build a couple more out here in the land they recently just annexed. But they also add another settlement out here and down here. They also move some people over here and over here. So they're kind of building up like a metropolitan area right here where there's going to be a bunch more cities. They actually put another one right there. And then they actually build another settlement out here because they need to compete with China, right? France builds another settlement right here near the US border, and the British build one near the Japanese border, and on the very end of where they have their trade route. The Japanese finally build their second settlement down here by their border with the EU, and one up by their border with the UK, as well as another one right here. The EU build one up by their Japanese border, one right here, and then that's it for them. But we can now go and color in North Korea. And speaking of more colonies, we have another country colonizing. I told you there's going to be a lot of colonizing in this video. They will be colored in orange, and they will be right here. It's not going to be too large, but it's pretty good size. And then in retaliation to this colony, this country's largest enemy, their largest rival country, will go and make their colony right here. Their capital will be down here by China for some reason, and theirs going to be kind of centered, but more northern towards the UK. Any other settlements they have will be here, here, and up here. Theirs will be here, 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 and here. It's actually quite a lot. And research bases, I'll just dot these around. They don't really matter. Then they're going to need some trade routes. This one actually links straight up with China, going to this city and their capital, but then also linking together all of their other settlements. The route between France and the UK actually finishes, and this route will actually link up to them. This country also finishes this route, linking it up to the UK. So now every single country on Mars is connected. A lot of them have to go through China, but they are connected. Now, if you couldn't guess what these countries are, they're India and Pakistan, of course. India here, Pakistan here. And this is basically just Pakistan and North Korea answering China's call for some of their allies to get over here. And we actually see a couple more explosions over in this area, basically confirming that China and North Korea are doing nuclear tests on Mars. Maybe Pakistan's in that too, but maybe not. And a lot of countries are actually mad about this. And we actually see a large mobilization of Mars, basically just throwing the Outer Space Treaty out of the window. That whole treaty is just completely irrelevant now. There is now mass mobilization on the Red Planet, and we could be seeing the start of a new world war. But it wouldn't just be World War III, it would be World War I? I don't know. It would be an interplanetary war. There'd be fighting on Mars, fighting on Earth, and in the next episode, we could see, well, fighting on Earth and fighting on Mars. So make sure you come back next week. And now there is another country colonizing Mars. Again, I said there's going to be a lot of colonizing in this video. They go up here near kind of the snow, taking over quite a large area. And take a guess on who you think this is. I can guarantee you it's not who you think it is. They're going to have to put their city down here where it's a little bit warmer. Then again, most of their settlements are probably underground or in giant domes. So it's a little more livable, I guess you could say. Nonetheless, though, they'll have 3 other settlements. Research bases, they'll have a couple more northern, even some not in their territory technically. Then for their routes, their country is actually pretty connected. They even go up into this base. The US immediately begins to build a route out to them. Same with France. They actually build out from this city too. And this one, just to kind of link up over here. Eventually, all of these routes are connected. They actually build down from this city here, down to the trade route over there. And India wants direct access to Japan. So they just build like that. The EU also builds up to this route. China builds a route with India, although it's not very well liked by Pakistan, because they're kind of hoping in order to get to China, everyone have to go through them, because then they get all the money. But now everyone over here can just go through India, and they don't like that. Now, if you couldn't guess who this country was, well, you better do it now, because I'm going to color them in. And if you said it was Algeria, you're wrong, because it's Canada. Whoa, there, Canada. Now, I don't know how long this would last for. A lot of you guys are calling for independence for a lot of different regions. So I'm going to say it just like I did last week. It's not going to happen in this video. We've seen a couple of changes to the world map, such as the Ukraine war resolution. And I think there was one other thing. I don't remember what it is, though. We're actually going to do one thing. It's not the independence thing. I'll get to that in a second. But it is the beginning of the formation of the East African Federation. Kenya and Tanzania are uniting together, along with Burundi and Rwanda, to form the East African Federation. That's what they're calling themselves. There is now the DRC, South Sudan, and Uganda who want to join, and they're in actual plans to join. But other countries such as Somalia, Ethiopia, Mozambique, and Malawi actually want to join, but they're not actually trying to join right now. They just have shown interest in this scenario. And now for one final event of the video, a lot of people around the world are extremely unhappy with colonizing Mars. They see that a lot of these countries are detonating nukes there, and they do not see it as, well, important, because they feel like we should be focusing on Earth and not, well, going to other planets, just trash stuff there. And so there are huge protests in Japan to go against colonizing. there are large protests in the UK, particularly in Scotland. There are lots of protests in France, particularly in French Guiana and the southern regions, but also throughout. And then many countries in the EU, such as the ones that aren't colonizing, continue to boycott or not support the colonization of Mars by the countries who are colonizing it. Nonetheless, Czechia and Finland will also join the board for colonizing Mars. Same with Denmark. They see it as a way to kind of increase their standing on the international scale. Portugal and Romania will also join this. And we actually see Ukraine trying to join the EU. Again, there's also lots of protests in the USA against colonizing Mars. And in Canada, obviously there's people against it, but there isn't large-scale protesting just yet. So it's about the year 2036, and in the last episode, we saw a ton of colonizing on Mars. North Korea began to colonize, we saw India and Pakistan begin to colonize, and we saw Canada form a colony up north. We saw a massive expansion of American and Chinese colonies, as well as French, British, Japanese, and other European colonies. With that said, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new. We're trying to get to 5,000 subscribers by the end of the summer, so all the support is appreciated. And yeah, let's get started. So right off the bat, we have North Korea just going at it and claiming a lot more land and getting increasingly closer to the American border. Remember in the last episode, we saw a huge increase of tensions even back on Earth, and we could be seeing World War III soon, which I will be covering on Earth. World War III on Earth won't be covered in as much detail as a normal mapping video would be, but there will be a lot more detail on Mars, because that's kind of the focus of the series. Also, you guys said you wanted to see some stuff on the moon, or maybe even asteroids. So let me know if you want this just to be a colonizing space series instead of colonizing Mars, because I could do that. So just make sure to let me know. Anyway, North Korea will continue to claim land, going increasingly farther west and north towards the US. Feeling threatened by this, the US will actually form a second colony down south here where there's more water, but also where there's more Chinese and North Koreans. Now if we go to bases, North Korea will begin to spread tons of other settlements throughout their new land, and the Americans will also set up 4 new settlements down in this land, which this isn't looking very good, not gonna lie. But I'm actually going to add a new layer here, and it's going to be these black dots, which you'll see lots in North Korea, mostly centered around here, but also up by the American border, now a couple down here, but also lots in China, kind of around their capital area too, but also over by the Americans, and over here kind of by the Japanese and the Europeans. We also see some in Pakistan, mostly along their border over near India, but also some around their capital region, and one over there. India also has a bunch near the capital, and again over by Pakistan. Now if you couldn't guess what these are military bases on Mars. So obviously this is dangerous. And in this colony down here, yeah, that colony is basically just for military bases. If we go to research bases, they have like a couple, but it's basically just for the military. And the US will also build a ton more military bases in this region in order to protect their capital, but also their other major cities, but also China and North Korea are right there. But of course they're going to build a couple others just as outposts along their stuff. The French will only have a couple. The Canadians don't even have a single one. Well, they do now. The Europeans will build a couple around their capital and in their southern regions near China. And the Japanese will build a couple in their southern regions. A couple up north, but they don't really need to worry about the UK or the EU invading them. So they're not really doing too much for now, but the British will mostly be putting theirs kind of in their western region. Some around their capital, but they definitely have a lot more than other European countries. Now with the creation of these military bases, tensions are at an all-time high on the Red Planet. And to increase these tensions, we have another country colonizing. This is one that was supposed to colonize in the last video, but I forgot, so my bad guys. But this is a country that probably should have colonized in the first episode, They didn't because they're still busy with Ukraine, but we got that settled. I think you kind of know who they are now. But they're going to form, their colony up here. You'll notice it's cut off by the map. That's because we'll have to go to the other side. It'll be right here. Kind of this bluish purpley color. It's a pretty big colony. Of course, this country is Russia. I mean, if that wasn't obvious already. And actually, let's talk about this map for a second. You'll notice something different from the last episode. I have the rest of the European Union colored in green, because that's the color of the European Union for colonizing Mars, but there's two different shades of green. If you remember from the other episodes, I said that the EU isn't colonizing with all of its members. A lot of the members aren't in support of colonizing Mars, but they're still allowing the other countries to do it, but they're not responsible for it, basically. And so I colored the rest of the EU in a darker green, and the ones that are colonizing are in the light green. We actually see Ukraine in the last episode, if you watched it all the way through, which you should have. We actually saw Ukraine applying to join the EU, and they now get in, and they're on the board for colonizing Mars. Russia is obviously angered by this, and in response to it, they send an ultimatum to Belarus, and they peacefully annex their neighbor, which is basically just their puppet state already. So, obviously this alarms the rest of Europe. Like, Poland now borders Russia in 2 places instead of just 1. And while they kind of had Belarus as a buffer state between Russia directly and NATO and the EU, but now Russia just comes straight in here, and that's obviously not a good thing. We actually see Turkey applying to join the EU again, same with some of these Balkan countries. Some of these Balkan countries here that are in NATO are being processed into the European Union, so we could see them join soon. Same with Moldova, or even like Iceland or Norway or something, but not right now. Now, I want to take a second to highlight something on this map. I'm going to put some circles on different countries. So Turkey, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Egypt, Algeria, South Africa, the East African Federation, which we'll get to more in a second, Brazil, Argentina, and Australia, and actually Indonesia as well. Now, if you couldn't guess what these dots mean, it means these countries are actively trying to get to Mars. They're not on Mars yet, and they're not going to be there just yet, but they are working on a space program and a colonization program in order to get to Mars and kind of establish themselves as a interplanetary power. I actually kind of like that word, or that phrase, I guess. I haven't really said that before. That's actually kind of cool. Imagine your country being an interplanetary power. That'd actually be kind of sick. Okay, anyways. Over in East Asia, you might remember me adding South Korea into a joint cooperation with Japan under its colonies. Well, we actually have other countries joining this, well, I don't want to say union, but alliance or cooperation group. But those are Taiwan, the Philippines, and, well, that's it. But Taiwan? Really? Yeah, well, China sees this as a really bad thing. The East Asian colony here will actually make a massive move and claim a ton of land in here. This will anger a lot of their neighboring countries, mostly because it sparks China to do this. And also any plans to build a trade route between China and Japan is now completely cut. And China is not accepting any goods from China, South Korea, Philippines, or Taiwan or anything. They've completely blocked them off. So that's always a good thing. Oh, that's good. You'll notice that there are no new settlements in these areas, mostly because they plan on going to war. They're not going to war yet, but it's pretty obvious that they're planning to go to war. Also, I just realized we forgot to do all the Russian stuff. Russia's main base will be right there. Other settlements will be there, here, and here. Research bases will be here. I'm just going to dot these around. It doesn't really matter. Put the rest there. Then military bases, they're going to put a whole bunch over here. But they also put a military outpost right there, which they don't even claim that territory. But Russia is really just here to help out China and North Korea, mostly because they kind of helped them out in Ukraine. They also put a whole bunch over here near where their US border is. Only that's not border, but they're close. Now let's finish up with the trade routes. The US connects up their settlement down here. The EU connects their settlements here. And the US begins to send a supply line to the EU. The EU is going to connect up with them. It's basically just blocking off China and that. The US will try to send a route between them and their new colony. North Korea will connect up all their cities down here and begin to build a route outwards because they want to connect up with Russia in order to block off the US. Russia will connect all of their settlements here and also begin on a route down towards North Korea. Russia finishes all of its routes here. They build one out to this military base, even going a little bit farther out. But they're going to stop there. They just plan to They just plan to colonize this area later, so they'll just build it now. But basically, it's a race right now to see who can get their route down here first. And Russia's going really fast. US isn't going quite as fast, but eventually, all sides meet right here. And that's not good because some North Koreans and Russians shoot at the Americans, and then that means, it means war. The United States is now at war with North Korea and Russia. So we come back to here where we now see something that looks like this. So yes, this will be World War IV. So yes, welcome to World War IV. This is going to be pretty crazy. There's going to be fighting on Earth and on Mars. The fighting will not start today, though. We're going to go back to this map, or maybe the fighting will start today. I don't know. You'll have to stick around. But we're going to go back down here to the East African Federation. I said earlier that we'll come back to them, and that's what we're doing right now, because Uganda will be joining up with them. Same with South Sudan. And finally, the DRC will finish its application and join up in the Union. So now we have this massive country here in the center of Africa. They're definitely larger than Algeria, so they're the largest country in Africa. I don't know if they're larger than Argentina or Kazakhstan, so they might be larger than the 10th largest country in the world. But yeah, also in Africa, we see the union between Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso. I know these three countries left all of the French organizations in that because they want to kind of go together. I know they formed that new alliance or organization together, and so they actually unite together. Again, they might actually be larger than Algeria too. But we also see tensions rising between Ethiopia and Eritrea, Sudan, and Egypt. As if you don't know, there is already basically a conflict going on between those countries. They're just not quite at war. Basically, Ethiopia wants to build dams on the Nile River, which basically just starts in Ethiopia, but then goes down into Sudan and Egypt. And that's basically where all their country's population is. And so this could be a new front in World War III. Did I say World War IV earlier? I meant World War III. And in one final event of the video, we actually have Scotland rebelling from the United Kingdom. As we saw in the last video, they are opposed to the way that the UK is colonizing Mars. On Mars, they're being very careless in their resource extraction. They are polluting a lot. Same with all of their rocket launches. This is causing a lot of pollution. And a lot of people here aren't fans of this. The EU isn't doing this as much. And so they're not exactly against the colonization of Mars. They just don't like the way the UK is doing it. And they've had enough of being part of the UK. And so now they rebel. And on Mars, there's actually a large Scottish community in the southern regions here of the British colony, I guess you could say. So I guess for now, Scotland has their colony on Mars. This will be their major base because it's really the only base in here. They have 2 military bases, but they're likely to join the EU soon. They might remain independent colonizers, or they'll just join up with the EU. I don't know. You'll have to see in the next video. Because in one final event, to start the fighting for World War III, North Korea will nuke the capital base of the United States. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Make sure you subscribe, that way we can get to 5K by the end of the summer. That would mean a lot to me. I know you don't really care about that necessarily, but it would. Leave any suggestions or other comments below. I love hearing you guys' feedback on the series. Also, one more thing. I know none of you are probably watching still, but if you are, I need to ask you guys something. A week or two ago, I did a poll on my channel asking if I should change my channel name, because some people had been suggesting that. I've also been thinking about doing that for a while. The whole Sad Bird 234 thing is just kind of going off of what my friends did when they started their channels. I have them all linked on my channel homepage if you want to go check them out. Shout out to Sad Bear 234. He's kind of the one that started it. But I was wondering if I should change my name to something a little more fitting to my content and stuff. I do like exploring stuff, exploring the world, the universe, through like maps and different science stuff, because that's just kind of what I'm interested in. So I was thinking something like Astro Bird, because I mean I still want to keep the bird part, because that seems something that's more part of the channel, right? So like, I saw people saying Astro Bird. I saw Atlas Bird, because like Atlas is like maps, I think, right? I don't know if that one's as good, but I kind of like Astro Bird a bit. So if you think I should change my name, let me know, and I will change it. Also, I might do some live streams over the next couple weeks, because it's summer now. So let me know if you'd want to watch that, what I should do for those. But yeah, if you're still watching, thank you so much. Appreciate you. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in next week's video, which will be the official start of World War III.